director Carlos Cardona. Carlos, you're here? Come. The movie is Chiqui. Chiqui. And Ari Salinger is here to speak about Rojas and Retribution. I think we have Brenna Lever for Apex Ape. Adrian Dexter for Terra Incognita. And Micaela Duran for 38. And I'm going to hand out the mics. And more. And here. Okay, we'll share. And Giulia and Sam, you wanna join? I'm just going to start by asking the circumstances of, just a very simple question to give context, the circumstances of the film. And we can start with Micaela, which is the last one you saw, because it's the third time that she screens with us, and this is the third film of a trilogy.
Sorry, what was the question? The circumstance?
Well, it's my Italian background, but no, it's it's the idea behind your trilogy essentially, and what is this a culmination of?
Yeah, so this is the final film in a trilogy that I made with my collaborator, who's not here, but our goal was to make films that show the internet without showing the internet, so no screens or interfaces. And I guess we were really interested in how we could, using the language of cinema, show the kind of seamless affect that technology has on our lives. So each film follows a different person of a different gender, of a certain generation, sexuality, and kind of shows through a different form what that experience is like. And so this final one is really about this woman's psyche as she's stalking the other woman in her life.
Adrian?
Yeah, I don't know. If you didn't ask me, I'd know, I think. I think the inspiration is just like, I don't know, if it was like a funny story, I thought. And then the film itself, I think, is like very self-explanatory, like overly so. So I don't know if I need to talk about like imagined realities and mythologies and stuff like that. It's kind of
why did you why animation as your language?
Well, it's like I am good at drawing, so I thought like I could do that, Yeah, and like I am attracted to animation because it's like I find I don't particularly like animation that much, but like I'm not inspired by animation that much. But I'm inspired by the medium because it's like I find it like extremely baroque, unnecessary, like so much. It's literally one frame at a time, and there's like 33,000 frames, and I know like every single one of them. It's like it took a long time.
Can you tell us just a little bit about the process, like how you actually work? You work with a collaborator, right?
Oh yeah. And my collaborator Pernille is in Copenhagen, so she couldn't make it. She's Danish. It's literally we did it with new methodology, but also it's like very traditional. Like the backgrounds, I drew them all in pencil, and then colored them in, and then the animation was done digitally, but in a traditional, like the same as Disney, frame by frame. Instead of flipping the paper, you're just doing the keys. But it's very sort of not some sort of new wizardry. It's very just like traditional frame by frame 2D animation.
I was just really obsessed with this building outside of the city where I went to school. It's called Apex, and I thought it was abandoned and discovered that it was actually a department store that was very slowly, I mean, it's still alive, I think, but definitely on the decline. And during the pandemic, when I saw these larger malls and big department stores closing, I was just really fixated on that weird kind of nostalgic and sad and eerie kind of feeling that I felt watching all of these just large structures die, big part of our American infrastructure in a way. And so, yeah, combining that with like my interest in the occult and cryptids, I thought about like, well, what if there was a Bigfoot that lived in one of these places, and what happens when his home is destroyed or goes away, and then just kind of capturing that feeling. But
Can you design the Bigfoot?
oh yeah. I also like making creatures, so I really wanted to make a narrative around a creature and that building. So.
And just from like a filmmaker logistical standpoint, how did you shoot in that mall? Because I know sometimes that can be tough to get into those spaces and who controls them. And
That really dictated like most of how I even made the film, because the biggest challenge for me was finding a space. We had a really tiny crew and budget, so finding permission to use like a commercial space like that was really challenging. We actually got to film inside of Apex because they have lots of vacant space there. And it was a lot of fighting to get that one day we could film, and just running up to Rhode Island to do that. But yeah.
Is this on? Oh, okay. So I've been wanting to make a film about my mother for a really long time. She's actually in the audience right there. It's the real life Cheeky.
wow,
Yeah, the last 5 years of my narrative filmmaking career, I've delved into more personal work. My last feature was called Scenes from a Breakup, and it's quite literally about myself and my former roommate and my partner and breaking up with my ex-girlfriend. And so Cheeky is another extension to my world of the very important women in my life. And so I had met Bridget Silva, the actress who plays Cheeky, and really it was because of her that we were able to make this film, because this is a self-financed, super independent project. Didn't have a budget for a casting director, and to get the people from the characters from their respective country or cities in Colombia would be very difficult. And I was very fortunate to have Bridget, who's from Bogota, where my mother's from, and she introduced me to the rest of the cast. And we made the film with my film family that I call, that we make films for each other. And we shot it during the pandemic before the vaccines, and we were very fortunate to pull it off, especially a period piece on 16 millimeters. So that's the genesis of it.
I was just going to ask. Oh, sorry.
We actually saw this last year. You weren't finished yet, so.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's great to finally screen it now.
Thanks. Yeah, we had our world premiere at Sundance, which is really cool, and we're doing the whole festival circuit now. I'm going to be in Los Angeles this next week for the Los Angeles Latino Film Festival, so just keeping the traction going.
Speaking of budget and time period and everything, just can you talk a little bit about that process of being able to capture the world of the 80s in that way that you did? Because I think you did such an authentic job of immersing us in that space.
Yeah, my cinematographer, Rand Rosenberg, we're like huge cinephiles and very, we're film purists, if you will. We try to shoot as much on celluloid as much as we can. And our production designer, Anna Novovich, is just a magnificently talented person, and she, really managed to aggregate and find all of this stuff at the time in like September of 2020, August of 2020, a lot of prop houses and rental houses were closing down because of the pandemic. And she knew this one place in New Jersey that just had like everything that we needed. And so.
What was it called?
I'm forgetting what it was. Actually, the prop house was in New York, but then they moved everything to New Jersey. I can't remember what it was called, but.
Sam's asking for us.
Oh, I'll get back to you.
Always got to get the deal.
One question about the 16 millimeter for our audience. What makes a young filmmaker that just starting wanna use a medium that it's by most considered obsolete, and what does celluloid bring to your film?
I think as far as we've come with digital cinema and digital technology, we're kind of close to emulating celluloid, but it's just so, if we would have shot this on digital, even if all the filters and grain filters and shooting on vintage lenses, it just still doesn't have the same feeling of film, because like the 80s, when we think of it, our collective memory of what that time period is on film. And so I thought it was just imperative to shoot on celluloid, and I think cinema is celluloid in film, so I stand by that.
Oh boy. So I'm Ari. I'm actually standing in for, or trying to be a conduit for my friend Danny. Danny Porter made this movie, A Rojas and Retribution. He shot it in 2014 in New Mexico, and we were classmates at Tisch together. I wasn't on the shoot, but from what I hear, it was really an intense ride. But yeah, when Danny passed away in 2020, me and my friends, all our Tisch classmates, got together and finished the film for him. Me and my brother Eitan did the score. Raven, who's not here, produced the film, and I have to say this is just a facet of Danny's imagination, really. The other film he made in school was about stoner elephants in an RV in space. And I think this really played into Danny's love of spaghetti westerns, Conan the Barbarian, Tremors, Dead Man, Neil Young, and yeah, he lived right up the street over here, and Sag Harbor was a big inspiration for both of us. And the fact that it's come full circle and people are watching his movie is really meaningful to me, and I know it would be for him too.
How much was it needed to be finished? What?
When we picked up the drives from his place, he needed full sound design. There was no music, so we did the score, and I guess it was about a year ago, and it needed full color correction. We were missing some lines from the Speaking Stars, and some special effects. So it was, but the edit was fully there, and yes, you know, it's interesting. Some people are just so brilliant, but finishing projects, I think, is really tough. I know everybody can relate to that. It's a predicament. And honestly, I have to say, if you were here seeing his movie in the company of these films, I think it would. I mean, I think it only enhances it, and I think it just would have really touched him. So, yeah.
One thing that was really beautiful about it was certain shots. I guess it was the way that the shots were treated, or the way the color was pumped. It kind of bridged nicely that how far you can go with film, so it almost feels like animation. Like I was reminded of beautiful backdrops that you would have in like a Western in the 60s, or even sort of like a Wizard of Oz type feeling. So I love seeing that on the big screen. It was really nice.
Yeah, it's seeing it on a big screen. I mean, I have no idea how he did any of that. Some of those, when you're seeing the sweeping shots of the constellations, which are, I mean, if you know Danny, it's kind of, you know, the character's replicated on him, and it looks like him, and it's very beautiful. I always think he probably thought of himself as that character, kind of moving around this landscape. You know, he came from New Mexico. I mean, he grew up in Sag Harbor and then moved to New Mexico, and I think it was all these images were important to include in this opus of his, and he pulled from a lot of different places. And yeah, I didn't even see it until after he passed, which was funny because he was one of my best friends, and like he didn't like to show it until it was done. So I'm glad that we could carry it home.
And your brother did the music.
Me and Eitan did the music. Yeah.
Was that shot on film?
Yes.
35 millimeter or 16?
Henry, what was it shot? Danny's brother is in the back of 35.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's what I love about the film, and I think even if they're so different from each other, much more than last year, it was a more uniform program. What I like about the film is that all of them have such a specific universe to them. I mean, and that's really important for filmmakers to be able to do, to create a world that you believe it, and it's self-contained. You know, from Danny's film, you know, the spaghetti western. You know, he looks like Danny, but he looks like Thomas Millian, which is one of the big spaghetti western actor. But all the films have this world that you believe and you embrace, and how difficult it is. This is a question for anyone that wants to answer, to create that world, to make it coherent so that the people can embrace it and be part of it. and I'm talking about production values. I'm talking about, you know, script. I'm talking. It's just very special to each of the films.
I think it always starts in the writing. But just one quick note about Danny. Danny's whole family were amazing production designers, and we made 3 films out here. One right across the street, actually, at the American Hotel, and but having that production design backbone. I mean, I saw him erect a set out in Montauk in a mechanic's backyard, and just seeing how hands-on he was really unique for, I think, a filmmaker. So I always think it starts with the writing, but production design, I think, really helps. I don't know what you guys.
I think one of the biggest achievements that any filmmaker can do is really create their own like idiosyncratic or specific world. And it doesn't matter what the film is about. If a world is created, a tone, an environment is created, you'll follow the character or the story anywhere. So I think all of the films here have that unique quality. So props to everyone for doing that.
Michaela, I was so struck by the first shot in your film. It's just such an amazing beginning, and it's still stuck with me. Was that something that came to mind way before shooting? Was it something in the moment? Like, also interesting just to know about the process of directing, but how did that come to be?
Yeah, I think I'm always interested in the camera having like its own mind. And I think I'm also someone who can get easily distracted, and I always want to lose a character and come back to them. And I think in the sense of us also imitating how we are online, it made sense for us to lose this character and come back to it. But it was also kind of setting up this voyeurism. And so to my director, Eric Yu, director of photography, who I've been working with for the past few years, I told him that I really wanted the camera to feel like it was a little kid watching their parents fight. And so he really took that note, and we had to actually like choreograph that scene so many times. It was the same basketball team kept seeing this fight happen on the street, you know, and there was a guy, I don't know if you can really see it, but there's this guy with this coffee there when we finally got that shot that he's just like scared, yeah. But it was fun. I think, I always also like giving the actors a lot of freedom. And so it was also nice to the camera wasn't even near them at that point when they were out in the street. So it was just this losing camera to me is always exciting, to lose a character and sort of inhabit like a voyeuristic tone.
Yeah, definitely.
How easy, in comparison to reality-based filmmaking, how easy is it animation to find financing, to control? I mean, it seems to be a slightly different.
Well, if you noticed,
path,
the credits were in French. Only the French would give me money. So I produced it in France, in Lyon, in Marseille, in Arles. It was a Danish minor co-production, but we didn't really, the Danish Film Institute wasn't a fan, so. To answer your question, extremely difficult, yeah, because it's also expensive. Like, you have to hire people to work full-time for a year on it. Like, you're making basically a pop-up company to like produce. You have to make a studio and everyone works, and you have to pay them. Everyone was paid union wages, so it was a. But you know, Arta and CNC, they came through, and luckily they. It's tough, but it was fun. It took many years.
And you think Europe is more responsive than?
I think it's a different model. Over here, it's more like you privately funded, or you're getting money and then you need to sort of. Like a success is something that is bringing money back in, whereas if you're applying, of course there are also grants over here and stuff that I try to also get, but in Europe, you get all these grants, regional funds and national funds, and then the completed film is the product. So it's like a different. There's nothing. I deliver the film and they say thank you, job well done. Maybe we'll do this again next time or something.
And Bren, am I wrong, or your film was produced in a contest of, Guildhall had a can you explain what the
Oh yeah. So yeah, I applied with my sister Devin, who's also here and produced the movie. We applied together for an artist in residence for local artists who are kind of stuck out here during the pandemic. We both moved home from the city, and the film was actually accompanied at the end like with a more of an installation. So we kind of set up this more immersive scene for everybody. So that was kind of like the final product for that residency. But yeah, that's how we were given the opportunity to make it.
and you also have done not the same way that Adrian, but you've done some animation because you do your puppet. You have your own workshop out here, and you've been working with puppets, correct?
Yeah,
Give us a little bit more.
Yeah, it was I kind of stumbled upon all of that by accident, but yeah, I make these life-size just creature costumes, and then it's sort of like a live animation in a way. Perform in them. I'm not a performer, but I discovered that I really love to do it. And if you've ever seen like a purple chicken running around town at all, I've only made a couple appearances, but that was me. And I found this really fun intersection with film. A lot of my friends and also my sister Devin are all filmmakers, and so I was able to combine the two, as well as do a little animation in another project I did. Obviously not at the level of that, but it was, my first little try and doing more like stop motion kind of stuff. But yeah.
And most of you have been the films, including Giulia and Sam, have been in film festivals. Very very different. And I mean, yours was at Sundance. Yours is at Sundance, and Adrian is Telluride, and I think Annecy, and Michaela has been in Rotterdam and in New York Film Festival. What does a film festival do for shorts, and what happens after you have the exposure of a festival?
I can start off with this one. Getting into Sundance was like kind of a dream come true for an independent filmmaker like myself, especially with something about my parents. Unfortunately, it was the in-person was canceled this year. But film festivals, like I've been to like the worst, and I've been to virtual Sundance, so I have a lot of experience with film festivals. Really, the only film festivals that matter are literally the ones that these films are a part of. In terms of brand recognition, in terms of what you can do with it. Having a Sundance laurel is like having, a piece of gold for a year that you can travel around and be like, hey, I got into Sundance. Like people take you seriously. And I think that's good in terms of trying to get your projects off the ground. It's difficult. I can only speak for my project, which is an episodic. So having been at that festival has allowed me to get meetings with network executives and production companies. So they are important, but also at the end of the day, it's what you do with it after the fact. Because a festival like Sundance it's like a marketplace, like Cannes. And if you don't have a feature, you're not something that you can sell. They don't really do that much for you, but they definitely give you a stamp of approval that you have like a good year with it that it can last. So.
Well, we just finished writing our feature, so we'll see. We'll see what happens, but
I think they're also just a good way to get an audience, right? Like you're not going to make a short film for money. You're only going to make it for yourself and for people to watch it. So the most people that you can get to see it is important, and a good festival will do that for you. We'll really get people out there to see it, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
I think that also certain festivals are geared towards a certain type of film. Like I think when I went to Rotterdam, it really champions more experimental, weirder narratives. And New York Film Festival also does as well. I think what was most exciting for me actually to go to those was seeing other people's films and seeing a lot of like international filmmakers and their approach to cinema. and narrative, and like I'm more into like Asian cinema and Argentinian cinema and slow kind of cinema, where stories are definitely more fragmented, or they show stories that typically one wouldn't want to tell about oneself, or projection of what someone might think. And so that was really beneficial. But our last film that did get a good festival circuit and showed at the Shed, we were able to find funding for this film because of someone who watched our last film and really liked it. And so that was extremely amazing. And then we also developed a friendship with this person. So yeah, I think I take that from film festivals. Yeah, the friendships, I guess, and relationships you can make.
I got one. They're all really, really nice to you until they find out you made the animation.
Joe came to a motion that we have to finish, we have to wrap this. But I just want to let you know that beside Giulia and Sam, Michaela is also working on a feature. Ari is working on a feature that will be shot in Montauk. You said an episodic, so everyone is working, and we'll be showing more of what they do.
And thank you so much, Giulia, for keeping cinema alive. Really.